Hey everyone, how y'all doing? Like I said, today was a snow day here, and I thought maybe since I knew I would get a lot done and I'd have some extra time, it's a good place to kind of talk about some other stuff. I know people like to hear about the history and some other things. Uh, Excuse the airplane. But what it was like I saw the video where I said the rise of media blasters. There was a couple little stories in there that you guys might find interesting or might find funny. Couple notes was just like, how did we get from 118 and then we went to 235? One of the more interesting ones was how we got from 235 40th Street, and then we got to the we got in on 8th Avenue. I forget the exact address right now, but we were on 8th Avenue for a long time. That was probably one of our, during the best times, that's where we were at. At that place, we actually got there because I don't know if you guys know, but in before there was all the changes around Times Square, because where we were on 40th Street, we're really near Times Square, right across the street from Port Authority. And what happened was they were going to tear down the building we were in. It wasn't our building, of course. They were tearing it down. And why? Because the New York Times bought that whole thing. And what happened was they were moving the New York Times in, and we had to move out. Here's the great part of that story is that when they told us that we had to move out, they actually paid for everything. They paid for us to move. They paid for us to find a new space. They paid every part of it. So we got paid for lost rent, lost this, lost that. It was pretty amazing. So that's a little bit of an interesting story of how we got to 8th Avenue and how life sometimes works in your favor or it doesn't work in your favor. Another thing I saw of that last video, which I never mentioned, was one of the reasons too that we got Invader Zim was that Paramount, I doubt they're watching these videos, but Paramount, when they had the chance to release it, I think because Paramount was handling Nickelodeon stuff, they declined. And that was another reason why we got it. Later on, that person felt pretty bad from what I heard. And yeah, we got it into Walmart, into so many places. And, it was just not pretty for them. And I don't think we'll ever be able to get that again. But it was a great moment. And the Invader Zim release was really good. I did mention I went from Ray Earth and I went straight to Rurouni Kenshin, but there was obviously some other titles in the middle. I think in one video I mentioned how Night Hunters did pretty well. That one did pretty well. We also had some other titles in between that actually, moved some units. But, they all kind of, I didn't mention too much on the Tokyo Shock side and on the other, I just mentioned a few, but some great ones were obviously Versus. You couldn't sell enough Versus. Those things, that thing was just like, even before it was like bootlegged out the wazoo. Everyone had a copy of it. It was just crazy. That one did extremely well. Ichi the Killer, oh my God. That thing, I remember when I saw it, I thought it was just way too crazy. But again, that's what they want from Miike. It's kind of funny. On the Miike front, I kind of like his stuff, like Crow Zero. And Fudo I like, but I do like Crow Zero as one of my favorite films. Yokai War and stuff, we released them, but they didn't do as well. They do okay. But what they want from Miike is crazy. So yeah, Ichi the Killer, from what I heard about how Audition did, that one did really well. But now let me segue into more of like I was talking about the fall. So yes, we're at our height. Zim, Rurouni Kenshin, everything's going amazing. We have a staff of about, 50 people, I think it was. Every benefit was covered, everything. So, the company was just doing great. It was looking like we couldn't do any wrong. We did make the movies Flesh for the Beast. That one actually did very well. Then Machine Girl hits, which again does really well. I just, we were just hitting on everything. And what happened was, I think, when did we start to fall? I would say it wasn't when, yes, Musicland getting hurt and all that thing hurt, but we survived that pretty well. I think the whole thing that really kind of, again, was the onset of the of streaming. A lot of guys, the BitTorrents, all that kind of stuff, was really starting to, guys were, they wanted it the same time that they got it in Japan and all that stuff. And back then, people weren't thinking as much of collector market as far as making special. We did have special boxes, of course. There were some higher priced items, but mostly you were still selling the straight out releases. People were waiting for them to come out. But once the BitTorrent started and the streaming kind of became more prevalent, you know, we started to feel it, especially when guys like Netflix and them even came on. In the beginning, the advances were pretty good. Everything was pretty good. But after a while, we just started to see less and less. And then they went to different models. They were first doing licensing. Then they went to basically, after that, they went to transactional, where it's basically like you rent a video or something like, or you buy the video. Then after that, they went to subscription based, like Crunchyroll and all that kind of stuff. Then after that, they went to, now they're at the ad based, which I call TV. But yeah, it's basically, they've reverted all the way back. But over that time, the home video market just kept deteriorating. Places like Best Buy started to reduce their sections. Really, then over time, it just became like, you know, you buy it online on Amazon or Right Stuff, and that's where we're kind of at. But, you know, that was a long slope down. So you're looking at basically this long slope of just continued diminishing sales. We are making some money with the AVOD, and, you know, we're making some money with TVOD and all those things. But again, they're slowly reducing and everything's going down. So what's happening is, though, while that's all happening, you don't really, your costs as far as the acquisitions and what, and also the acquisitions can vary. They could go up and down pretty quickly. But the stuff like your rent, the contract, the rent you have, all your leases, all the things you have, your payroll and all those things, you kind of wind up where those are not so easy to cut, because some of them are contractual and you just can't say, no, you know, business is bad, we can't pay you right now. Then the other ones, as far as like payroll and stuff, frankly, a lot of these people are like your family. You know, I mean, for me, it was, Media Blasters was really a family. So when I say it that way, I mean, like, some people met their husband and wife, you know, they got married there. They met their future partners. They were great people. I saw them grow and become great people. Now, don't get me wrong. The place wasn't all, you know, dandelions and, you know, it wasn't the most amazing place, but and there was problems, you know, there was conflicts between people. There was always that, you know, personalities, alphas and all that. They will fight with each other, but all in all, it was still a pretty damn good family. People did love working at Media Blasters. Nobody really wanted to leave. You know, but as things got tough with money and everything, that's when you, as the boss, you got to start making the tough decisions. Those tough decisions, they're hard. You know, for the longest time, people would always, I remember at some morning meetings, because we always used to do our Monday morning meeting. That was a holdover from CPM. Everyone hated it, but I kept it going. We used to have a Monday meeting, and what happened was, is like, they would always say, John, what's your next rabbit you're going to pull out of the hat? And that meant, like, you know, I did Rayearth. And by the way, I forgot to mention Berserk. And I did these other series. And they're all like, well, what's going to be the next thing you're going to pick, John, that's going to, you know, keep bringing the company higher and higher? Well, what happened was the magic kind of evaporated. You know, meaning that, yes, some of the choices we made were not good. Production-wise, on the Japanese side, Tokyo Gore Police was amazing, but Death Kappa was not a good choice. Then, you know, on the American side, on the production side, Flesh for the Beast was fine. Shadow was way too expensive, but we didn't lose a lot, but I think the thing maybe broke even over the years. And then you had, after that, we did Wicked Lake, and that was just not going well. Later, we did these low-budget ones, like, you know, Shinobi Girl and Late Fee. Those did okay because they were so low budget, but also their revenues didn't justify the amount of time that you were putting into them. So what happened was, yeah, that end was doing that. Also on the other side, on the anime work side, if you remember, there was this period where people really weren't licensing and releasing too much. I would call that, like, we licensed Ladies versus Butler and all that. That was a time period where it seemed to be a lot of the anime wasn't being licensed. There was a reason. Most of the companies were kind of, going through changes of gone. A Division was gone, and CPM eventually went away. All these companies eventually were going, and we were kind of hanging on by a thread. We had like the hentai and what, because our costs were always so low, we never did a lot of it. We were hanging on, but we were at death's door. Like I said, at about 2015 and stuff like that, I thought, who knows what's gonna happen now. And again, I did it in another video where I kind of messed up the story, but what saved us more than anything else was, yes, the hentai on Blu-ray kind of picked us up. We started with Paid and Late, and we started with the Double Duty, but those were DVD. But what happened was I kind of gave up on the whole idea of that we're gonna start produce our own stuff and sell it worldwide. It just didn't, it just didn't really work. So again, another idea that kind of fell flat. So what I then did was like, okay, let's do it another way. Let's go back to that. I didn't know what to do, and I just happened to get that advice from Chris, and that was, I didn't ask him exactly, but he just told me, and it worked. It definitely did work. It helped us get on our feet, at least. I wouldn't say it solved the problem, but it did help us get on our feet. Then the other thing was that we did also wind up where there were titles that we weren't doing so well with. So I would say that, as far as that goes, we picked just after I would say what was the better one of the last ones. I mean, it's hard to say on the anime work side. We were doing okay with stuff like Green. We always did well with the sexy comedies and what. But, after that, we really weren't licensing much. There wasn't, the last big one, I can't even remember. All I remember are the bad ones. And I did mention about Gao Gaigo in another video. That was terrible for us. And I did mention also Bakuman. That was terrible for us. You had all these like bad acquisitions combined with the streaming model and all that really not making up for home video. You had also, at that time then, the money's coming down. People want their money, the ones who are on like rental and all that. You have payroll, and I'm trying to keep people around, trying to do whatever. And I was kind of almost at death's door kind of a thing. One thing I will mention that helped us to just keep going for a little while we were, trying to deal with all the problems was I did sell the distribution to Allegro. I don't think they're around anymore from last I heard, because I did get a lot of legal notices. But Allegro, they took over our distribution. They gave us we worked out a deal and we got some funding from it. And what happened was that kept us going a little bit longer. But the problem was we just still didn't really have a plan. Yes, they were going to handle some distribution. They told us they could get into places we've never been before, like, I don't know, the truck stops and that kind of thing, especially with the martial arts movies and all that. But that never came to be. We found out that they were really looking at our stuff to get them into Best Buy and Walmart and stuff. In fact, Shinobi Girl got in and they did okay with it. Unfortunately, as a business, I guess they didn't really. Being in home video at that time and trying to do what they were doing was kind of like, I wouldn't say that was the best decision, but that's something they wanted to do. We needed it, and that helped us and kept us going for a while. They kind of went out, and that's when, again, it was that 2015, there we were. It was basically the Paid and Late, that kind of thing. We just got that. But we didn't have much else. Meaning, like, we didn't have much money, really. We were kind of just surviving. I was kind of, doing a few cons. We were still selling some old inventory. I was just getting rid of inventory. There's all these liquidators. We had skids and skids of inventory from the past. and we would just, you know, blow them out there. But that's not exactly a model that works long time. You know, that'll work for maybe a few months or whatever it was. So we did that. And, you know, all those things combined, and a little money here, a little money there, we would close a little deal, do whatever. We survived through 2015, and then we started to build. And that's our turning point. Yes, it was the hentai, but there's other factors. And I'll go into those other factors in another video. I'll talk about the biggest thing that ever happened for Media Blasters, that probably was one of the worst things that happened for everyone else, or most of the world, and you all know it well. So we'll go on with that. But for now, these are a lot of random thoughts and but I hope it makes a timeline for you guys. I will keep filling in with stories and tidbits here and there. But that's a little bit of the history. I will go more into more title by title. Like, I think the Zim story was kind of interesting, with the whole how we got that, and Paramount passing and all that, and the Kenshin story and all that kind of thing. I'll talk to you about, you know, there's tons of other ones like that, of how some of these big titles we got are some of the lesser known titles that did perform really well, or the ones that were supposed to didn't. Those are all really interesting, and just sometimes the company dynamic as far as inside the office. I don't like going through people's names and talking about them unless I have something really positive to say. You know, because I don't know if they want to be mentioned or not. But in any case, next videos will go into more of just, okay, we're finding this thing works a little bit, the hentai and what. So now, where do we go from there? We don't have a lot much else. All right? Take care, guys. Be happy, be safe, be healthy. Bye for now.